All right, party people. We're going to do this the old-fashioned way with the computer, the old-school webcam. Can everyone hear me okay? Russell will be joining us shortly. Appreciate everyone for jumping in. It's been a minute. I just been busy with spring and everything going on and stuff. So still need to get a new webcam. I haven't had time to do that yet. So we're having to kind of bodge this together. Russell just texted me and said he'll be along in a minute. So I appreciate it. I'll jump into a couple questions and then we'll circle back and talk about the spring game in a minute. There's a couple of questions that are probably more centered towards me from the chat. So we'll jump in with the dude abides first here with his first question. He had a call from Jay Batten, beloved board poster Ekrebs has perished with carpal tunnel complications. He has no known family and his will names you as his best friend and executor. Surprisingly, he has $10 million left in a trust that he inherited. He has left this to the football program with your discretion on where the funds should go after your fee of $100K. Two questions. Is $100K enough to offset the income from all his accounts? Where would you use the $10 million? So someone's asking me if you could donate Georgia Tech $10 million, what would you allocate it for? And I would say in this current environment, you would do NIL. That's where you can have the most immediate impact. That's the easiest way to have a positive impact on your program right now. And it's one of the things that I've kind of tried to explain as much as possible. It's difficult for some people to want to just give money blindly into football. You don't know what your results are. And then at some places we're now finding that people feel like they have like ownership of the team and feel like they can give coaches feedback. So that's pretty funny. That has not happened as far as I know at Georgia Tech, but it's happening at some other places, and it's been pretty funny to kind of watch. But we're in this weird kind of hybrid period. I think that something's going to evolve out of all of this. It's just going to take time. And I think that we'll see what happens. But I mean, yeah, $10 million would give you a nice jump start on getting back into the ACC championship game, that kind of thing. So I'll take some from the chat here real quick while we wait on Russell to jump in. First question for me, how many players do you expect to see in the portal? I wrote about this on JOL last week. I think it said 6. We're at 6 new guys. So we're at Georgia Tech. We've seen on JOL, see Justin Brown, Io, Gavin Stewart, Blackstrain, which was already announced. Stephen Jones, which was I counted into that. So I think there's still a few more that are going to come through. As far as I know, they feel pretty comfortable with where they stand in terms of getting poached or not getting poached or whatever. So, that's always a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month or whatever thing. And we have Russell joining us, and he's got his video turned off because he's sick and being a baby about it. Can you hear us?
That's right.
You there, Russell?
Yes, can you hear me?
At least throw like a graphic up, man, or something.
I gotta try to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, you should try to figure out how to put like a little like GIF or something that like at least gives people something to look at while you're up here.
Yeah, there we go. I'll find something.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't totally answer Ryan's question because it backed into the next question. How many players do I think that will continue to go in? Probably about 4 guys. There's still about 4 people that Russell and I kind of compiled our own personal list and compared and contrast. And we're, and also I think some of it functions too. Like if you have a bunch of loss at one position, you might not see guys go in. So there's a little of that going on as well.
This is all I could come up with. I hope it's okay.
Is it a picture of like Acuna or something?
No.
Picture of, oh Lord, Russell. Trying to raise people's blood pressure on here.
It was the quickest thing I could come up with that seemed at least semi-professional.
The talking baseball. I'm gonna get calls about this, aren't I? The next question from JOL was about the apparel contract, and I know nothing about it. People are reading way too much into, say, a yard sale and what's going on, and people think they're staying with Adidas, other people don't. I have not been able to get anywhere like trying to find out what's going on. I got very lucky with how the last one went down because I had some connections in that business at that time that were able to kind of tell me a little bit what was going on behind the scenes. This time, those people have all left that business because it's been rough times for a lot of the apparel companies. And I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. They could do a split deal. They could do a multiple deal. One of the things that came up last time when they were negotiating is there were opportunities to maybe split it up between different sports. So there's no telling with J-Bats. J-Bats going to do whatever makes the most financial sense for Georgia Tech. And the days of getting like these huge windfalls from those apparel deals are pretty much gone.
Yeah, and then, I think also the ability now for, I think you said it before, either on the message board or on video, but the ability for individuals to sign contracts with brands has created just another avenue of a way for them to make money. And to be honest with you, I can imagine that those, one-off apparel deals with the, let's say with Jordan Brand or Nike or Adidas, and those one-offs are probably a lot more attractive than signing up for an entire apparel contract.
Yeah, I think that you're in it if you're was there an Angel Reese or like Caitlin Clark or whatever, or in women's basketball, or you're Armando Bacot or who DJ Burns, right? It's the guy that just cashed in. Like you can just make deals with those people individually that make a lot more sense, where you can cash in on the moment of their fame, or just people who are like the twins at Miami or whatever that were popular on Instagram or TikTok or whatever it was. Like those deals can be micro transactions where you go straight to what you want versus just trying to hope that if you're Nike and you sign Miami or whatever, or Adidas and you sign Miami, I forget who they have, that you're going to get like an inroad with their players in the future. I think those days are a little bit gone. Why is the transfer window opening up differently than it was last year? People are really hyping it up. Because It's sort of like restricted free agency in pro sports, I guess would be. Would you say that's a fair way of describing it, Russell? I don't know how to. It's like
Yes.
if you
Yeah,
have a
I would say
hole,
restricted
you
free
can,
agency, yeah.
yeah, if you have a hole, you can go try to fill it if you have money, but you also run the risk of someone else poaching one of your guys and then coming back and not being able to have the money to like keep one of your dudes if someone's trying to poach them. I literally have had coaches from other schools like message me about schools that I cover or schools I have connections with just to ask me about, if so and so's leaving, what do I think? And I try to stay the hell out of that stuff because like I have no interest in being in the middle of someone's like trying to poach a kid or portaling or any of that stuff. But it is interesting what comes up. So that's why people are hyping up because they think there's going to be a bunch of major transactions, and we're seeing that go on right now.
Yeah, and then, I think also it has also become a bit of a not a redo, but a lot of the kids who transferred in the like after the season who maybe aren't working out, maybe the spots aren't where they need to be in terms of the depth chart. It's all over the country. Like Kentucky lost one of their impact wide receiver transfers that they thought they got, but they didn't really like what he looked like in spring. So now he's back in the portal.
Yeah, it's like getting cut in baseball, like at the end of spring training or something. Like, I signed this guy, but he hit a buck 05 in spring training and, 10 games or whatever. So I'm going to cut him and go try to sign Adam Duvall or whatever if you're looking for an outfielder. There's a lot of that going on. I think we saw an example of that actually today, which I won't go into, but just on a guy that turned out to be a miss for Georgia Tech. Someone wants to know, is Damon Stoudemire looking for an assistant yet? I have not got an answer about that. What's going on with BJ Elder? I don't know if anyone's leaving to go to another job yet. I think when the NBA season ends, there'll be a little more clarity probably on that because I could see one or two of his guys also exploring an NBA option if they have interest. It depends on who gets jobs and stuff too in the next cycle there. So there's a lot of moving pieces with the basketball staff and he could just decide he liked what he had and keep it together. I don't know. Like I haven't asked Damon about it. Haven't had an opportunity to. So, and no one that I talk to regularly is in a position to either comment about it or maybe even know what's going on yet. So, it's something that I'll bring up if I bump into Damon, but it's not something I'm pushing to find out right now until at least the NBA, the playoffs at least start or whatever, and you see what happens with some of these other jobs. Spots on the cycle, Russell. Do you have a guess at that?
Oh, and a number of how many?
Yeah, this time around.
Let's see here. I'm trying to go off the top of my head.
So they have. Give me a second. I can tell you how many.
Say 5, 6, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to try. I think he's put a couple guys on. Yeah, I mean, they put a couple guys on scholarship. They're at 70. Well, I haven't counted those guys in yet. They're at like 74 if you count those guys in. Plus, who all still comes in? You got Prince and Harpring. So that's 2. Kai Greer, 3. Bradford. The kid whose name I can't pronounce is 5. Landon Marshall is 6. Dozier 7. Nehemiah is 8. Pritchett's 9, and Troy Stevenson's 10. So that puts you at 80, 84. But I still think or 85. But I still think there's like 4 or 5 guys that leave probably. So, yeah, I think it's gonna be about 5 guys. Like you always want to be in a position to reward people for like your walk-ons and stuff. And he's done it with like Henry Freer and some of these guys. So like that's a big part of having a successful program. In the positions, we've talked about this extensively on JOL. D-tackle, everyone scoffed at me when I suggested that, but I clearly knew what I was talking about because I know who my sources were on that. D-tackle, rush end, maybe a defensive end, depending on what happens in that room, but probably less of a priority unless you find like the right guy. A corner, if you can find a good corner, that would be like a rotation guy with. They like to play four corners, so they need to get into a situation where they have that. They don't have that right now. And then maybe a skill guy on offense, maybe a receiver can get separation, maybe not. It just depends on who's available. It's going to be hard to get a receiver to come in, I think, with what they have going on right now in that room. If you're looking at Leo coming back and Chase Lane coming back and Eric Singleton and Malik and Christian Leary, you guys have played a lot. And then Bailey Stockton just had a huge spring game. And so did Zion Taylor, who's a guy they're excited about. So
and Isaiah Canyon.
Yeah, Isaiah hasn't played a snap yet. So
Trey Horn.
Yeah, Trey Horn's there. You got some young guys. So, and you got guys like Abdul Janae who are very serviceable, second receivers on the team. Not going to necessarily be the guy, but they can do a good job. Gun to your head, I always love these. Where does the total defense ranking end up this year? It has to be better than near the bottom, right? Right. Yeah, I would. I mean, I think if you can get to above 70, win 8 games, probably at least with the schedule they got. I don't know. Elaborate if you think the holes on defense that could really kill us by midseason, unless the portal rewards us. I don't think there's major holes in the defense. I think there's some depth problems on the defensive line where they're just a little thin. They're a little thin at rush in. Right now you had 3 scholarship guys plus one more coming in. So you got 4 guys, of which Kevin Harris is the only one that's played meaningful snaps in his career. So that's a problem. Like, you need to find a little bit more depth there. I think the other defensive end spot there are much better shape because you have a lot more experience there. Linebacker, I think they feel really good about what they have. They have 5 linebackers they like right now. So I think that's a good situation to be in. Best wide receiver QB combo rooms in a while, but I want to see how far this defense goes with Zeke. Okay. Say Tucci, best case scenario. I hope for play call. Okay, whatever. That was someone offering their thoughts and stuff. College basketball overload. Based on the current roster, what is your current starting lineup and rotation? What do you think, Russell?
I'll let you tackle that one.
Well, if they played tomorrow, Bye would be your big man. I guess. I don't even know about that. I think you play him at the 5 if they had to play tomorrow, but I don't think that's going to be the final lineup. But you play him. I think you play small. You play him there. You play Wasey at the 4 spot. You play him up. You play Miles at the 3. You play either Lance or McCollum, and then Nate George is the other guy. And that's your 5. But that's not going to be what it is. Obviously, centers are expensive. Can you give us a name or two that you would like Stoudemire to go after and spend the majority of our NIL on? I would imagine he's mindful of last year and trying to avoid another Claude who was decent at times or EB experiments. Yeah, they're trying to find a serviceable guy. It's just there's no names to drop. There's like a handful of these guys. Everyone's chasing them. The guy from Rutgers is going to get like $1 million from somebody. He's taking like 4 visits and is getting a fortune. So I don't know.
Is GT involved there?
With Big Cliff? No.
Oh.
No, they don't have the money to be involved in that. That's like crazy money. That's like Bama and Baylor and like Kentucky or Arkansas, one of them. Like that's all crazy stuff. Now, someone just asked about Miles Kelly. Is he leaving? Gotta follow the board, dude. There was a report that he was going to declare for the draft. That doesn't mean he's going anywhere. And it wasn't a report that he was entering the portal and declaring for the draft. That's how you leave. You can declare for the draft now apparently multiple times, which is something I learned. Oh, Sean Taylor, you got to focus more. EJ, Trent, Eford, Butler, and Jackson Hamilton is the fifth linebacker.
Yeah. I wouldn't sleep on Jackson Hamilton.
No, he looked good to me, man, this spring. Do I think a center addition or another big body puts the basketball team in contention for March with the current roster? Yeah, probably. I mean, if you could get something out of Dorian or like some of the other guys, yeah, maybe too. Like, I think there's not necessarily one answer. I don't. If people are asking me about NIL for basketball, I have no idea what the numbers. Do I think he was less or more expensive? No clue, dude. Like, really. If Damon, we're getting into the Jeff Collins questions now here. Dude asked me if Damon makes the tournament next year, does he return to Georgia Tech? I remember when Georgia Tech fans were worried the Atlanta Falcons were going to hire Jeff Collins. To put it in perspective, don't worry about those things now. That is a stupid concern, and it is literally like the most ridiculous thing that you can worry about at this point. Like, if you win and the program's in a good spot, then you're attractive to people and you'll get other jobs. If it's an attractive job, which it can be if it's winning, then the coach usually wants to stick around. Breakout player for 2024-25. I think it'll be Lance Terry, man. Like, I think people have been sleeping on Lance. I think he's going to be really fired up for that year, and I think he's a good fit in the system. This is a question for Russell. How big of a business is making edits for high school recruits and portal transfers?
Oh gosh. So way back, Hayes Fawcett was a kid in high school and was doing edits just sitting on his phone and would just submit them. And he started to build a rapport with the guys who would tell him where he was committing. He wouldn't tell anybody. Well, he would tell people, but he would make them swear to secrecy. And it became like a little bit of like a niche market. And then you had other guys step in and create roles for themselves in similar ways with different designs and different styles. And you look at it now, and a guy like that who, might not actually be able to write, but has these relationships with these kids, and they trust him to break the commitment. Whether it's, Rivals has some guys on our staff who do some similar things, and it's become like I don't even really know what to compare it to, but it has become such a big part of recruiting where every time someone commits or has a top schools list or has a decision date finalized, they're doing so with an edit and with somebody out there having a heads up on what was coming, and whether or not that ends up coming with a story or whether it's just the edit and the graphic. I mean, goodness, Kelly and I are still working with the Mississippi State site, and we have a guy there who does some really nice graphics. And if he's able to, continue to build those relationships there for him in Mississippi, I mean, he could carve himself out a real role, whether it be with Rivals or with the Mississippi State side in general.
Yeah, it's a niche business. There's no money in it. Like, there have been a few kids have like paid for these, like some elaborate videos or something, but other than that, that kind of thing.
No, it started out like a entirely free thing, but
Yeah.
there are some guys now who, like, that's their full-time job is making.
But they're getting paid by a third party and not the kids.
Yes, the kids. No, the kids are not paying anything. No. There were at some point there were some guys trying to do that, and they got froze out real quick. Because you would think, oh, this is an easy opportunity to take advantage of kids who want to look good for their moment. But like I said, they got froze out and blackballed out of the industry, I guess you could call it.
Yeah. Yeah, these kids all talk to each other. That's the thing that people always forget. what kind of big man is Stoudemire shopping for in the portal? Armando Bacot or Ben Middlebrooks? I mean, he's looking for a guy that can do more than just dunk the basketball and play around just in around the rim. If you look at who they've targeted, it's the ones that I've been able to report on. They've not been just straight up, just to do the bangs and plays, a game from 20 years ago in the post. Damon likes to move the ball. He wants to play with a versatile center. So it won't be like just a stiff in the middle.
No, it won't be the way eBay was.
What's your plan for Ireland? When are you getting there? Any JOL meetups? Make it a sign for game day. I think we'll tackle it as it gets a little closer. I'm still trying to figure out. I haven't booked my travel yet. I have hotels and stuff for when I need them, but I haven't booked what we're doing yet. I think my wife and I are going to go over early for a little vacation and then switch in. I'll be in Ireland to do the game mode. But yeah, we could definitely work out, meet in a pub or something, have a little meetup, get together. How scared should we be about losing impact players in the portal? I answered this quite a bunch. That's not a concern right now at Georgia Tech. Will this portal period end as a net positive or negative from roster count? Dude, your Diego's 77 is being pretty negative. I think it'll end up being a positive. No one's asked about Auburn. No one's asked about GT Auburn lately. I think I feel like we've seen like a pause in even games being announced for the future, as everyone has no idea what the hell is going to happen. So, I don't know if you saw that one thing that Russell and I were texting each other about earlier, which is one of the proposals for a Super League. Georgia Tech would play Auburn and Alabama and Mississippi State and Ole Miss and Georgia or something in a division, which would be interesting with salary cap and basically pro sports, but soccer style. So we'll see what happens. I would not hold my breath for an Auburn game coming on the books though anytime soon. A little more of a Russell question. Which incoming freshman of the summer expect to be the biggest impact on football? I think a Luke Harpering or David Prince, one of those dudes will play.
Yeah, one of them or Montre Bradford.
Maybe a Landon Marshall.
Yeah.
But
see, the thing with Marshall is if they do end up being able to add the bodies that they want to add and the talent they want to add, he has less of a role. Yeah. I think that's why it's so hard to really answer that question. Honestly, at this point, really what people should be asking about and talking about is the performances in the spring game, and if guys can carry that on and kind of move forward from it, or if it was just kind of like a one-hit wonder.
The other guy I think about, the other two, maybe Christian Pritchett or Troy Stevenson, one of those guys gets in. It's easier to play at those positions, out on the edge. The nickel's a little harder to play as a true freshman, but the depth situation there, I could see one of those guys getting in the mix. Oh boy. Yeah, a lot of questions. Do you expect Sylvain to start or be a top 3 defensive end? Yeah, I would. He was the best defensive end on the team a year ago when he got hurt. He should be the best defensive end currently on the roster when they line up a year, in Ireland. So yeah, I don't understand why people don't understand that Sylvain's actually pretty good at what he does. He's had 2 fluke injuries 4 years apart and played 2 full seasons in between them. What is your guess or number of wins in football over under 8? 8. I think. What did I say, Russell? 6 to 9 is my window that I gave. I think on the board, maybe.
Yes, yeah, I think that's what it was. Either that or 6 to 8.
Yeah. So I think 9 with a bowl game or an ACC title game or some, extra games. Someone's asking about Florida. Do we know who's on Florida State's team right now for the 2024 season opener, Russell?
No.
Do you feel confident in even projecting like their starting lineup? I have no idea what their starting lineup is right now. People always ask this stuff, and I'm always fascinated as if we sit around like studying like the roster and reading, Florida State sites or reading the Duke site. And it's not a shot against you, my man, but like that's not no one has time for that. We're like dealing with our own stuff. So we all start to get into dealing with all the stuff as the games get closer, maybe over the summertime is when I'll start to look at that stuff.
Yeah, once the restricted free agency ends, I think once the rosters are kind of put better together, that's when we can have, actual intelligent conversations about, potential weaknesses, things that they've shown in the past. I mean, Florida State hasn't even had their spring game yet.
Yeah.
I think that's this weekend.
All right. This dude asked a bunch of questions. What are some reasonable expectations for basketball freshmen in McCollum in terms of playing time, play style, fit, and role? Well, McCollum will be a guy that plays 25 plus minutes. He will be.
Yeah, he wouldn't be coming if he wasn't.
No, he's not coming to sit on the bench behind Lance Terry and Nate George and just play 10 minutes a game. He'll play Kyle Sturdivant's role, only hopefully with a higher ceiling. And that's not showing against Kyle. I think Kyle did a great job, but that's what McCollum's role is, that guy, the steadying veteran guy to play defense, shoot threes, hit free throws, keep the game moving along, give Nate a little bit of a break off being the point guard. What weaknesses from this past basketball team need to be improved on in order to make the tournament? I assume issues are bigger than others. Like they shot better from three, have better inside defense. They make the result. They would have made the tournament as a result of improvement. The biggest thing to me is turnovers, and especially unforced turnovers. The Tafara Gapare ball, going up for a layup, driving to the hoop, and the ball flies out and hits a photographer and the camera. Like those things, throwing a pass when the cutter's not where they're supposed to be, or when you think someone's supposed to be somewhere and they're not. Those things, drive a coach crazy and drove Damon crazy. And if you whittle down the turnovers and cut them by like 30%, they probably have had 5 or 6 more wins this past year. Just that one area of the game. But that's the growing pains. You're playing with 2 true freshmen who, and then Gapare, and between those 3, that was a lot of your turnovers and key situations. So it wasn't necessarily Miles or Kyle or Wasey or any of those dudes. It was young guys handling the ball and making mistakes, by trying to do too much around the basket instead of just getting rid of the ball when he didn't have this first look, that kind of stuff. Someone wants to know about how they raise money for NIL. Dude, you can that is not something I have a lot of knowledge in how they go raise money. I don't know. I don't know how to answer your question there, dude. Sorry. It's not like Shark Tank where he was like, is it a Shark Tank where people make proposals? No. Generally, there's connections and meetings, and they do different things. They have mixers and all kinds of the same way you would raise money if you ran a charitable organization or an athletic department. The traditional ways they raise the money is the same thing they do with NIL. Someone asked me if my viewpoint on Stoudemire has improved since this hire was made. I'd say his recruiting's going a lot better than I thought. The X's and O's thing's kind of something I'm real curious about next year. I feel like he had an impression of the way he thought the game should be played and had to adjust that on the fly, and that cost them a little bit early in the season, especially defensively. And, offensively, what is he going to tweak? How is he going to change? Because you don't have NBA shooters all the time, so you have to adjust a little bit for those things, but he didn't have anyone who could create their own shot either. So, I think it'll be more apparent when you see more of a roster that he's constructed, like the coaching aspect of it. What is the biggest impact Jay Bad has made since being named AD? I think his attention to detail is like really good. Like just making sure things run smoothly. And the great example I would give is the spring game a year ago versus this year. Last year, he was kind of thrown into the fire. A few months on the job. They have the spring game. There were some issues. This year was much smoother. I think that he's always trying to figure things out and ways to make money and improve the experience and all that stuff. So I think he's done a nice job adjusting. All right, here you go. Which college basketball freshman, I'm guessing, will be the best year one? What do you think, Russell?
Oh, goodness. See, I've seen Sutton and Mustaf play in person, and if I had to pick between the two, I would say Mustaf. But then when you throw in, Dorian in the mix, that's where, I'm not sure which one it is that's going to be able to be the best, make the most impact, I think, given the opening at center. I think that's where you really have an opportunity. Now, could Damon add a portal guy, a big man tomorrow or next week? Yes. And then at that point, it's really a toss-up again between him and Mustaf, who's going to be the best year one. I think, Mustaf's ability to do exactly what you were just talking about was the biggest issue for the team last year, which is not turning the ball over, being that floor general type when he needs to be, especially late in games. I watched, him and the City Reapers team come back from several, big deficits late in the fourth quarter with him kind of leading the way. So, a lot of words to really say. I would say it would be between Mustaf and Dorian. What about you?
I tend to agree with that. Sutton has an interesting game. I think he's a little more raw. Cole Kerouac, I think, ends up redshirting. That's my gut feeling. I think he's like Sawari, and they sit him down and redshirt him. So, Dorian's sort of the X factor guy to me. Like, how quickly can he be ready? Because I think there's a need there both for a starter and maybe a guy playing off the bench. Mustaf can be brought along a little more slowly if you need to, or Sutton, depending on what's going on. Basketball, you think we're done with high school recruiting for next year now? So I assume you're asking for 2024, and yeah, I think they're done with signing high school kids. It's just about adding guys in the portal at this point, and big man, stretch kind of players, and guards, like they can shoot threes. That's what they're looking at in the portal. There's a whole thing on JOL right now you can read about where I break down who they're recruiting, what's going on there. I mentioned a few days ago I thought it was the best roster top to bottom since 2000s. Are other teams in the country beginning to see what Key is doing? Not sure what the other staffs are appreciating what he's done and what they're building, and you hear other coaches talk about that a lot. Something that's come up with Damon some too. Other coaches are noticing kind of the recruiting and the stockpiling of talent, and also the ability to bring in smart guys from the portal and player development, which is player development's the thing that was lost a little bit during Collins' era. Those things that Paul Johnson was really good at, and Chan and his staff did a nice job at some positions with. And obviously what Larry had a lot of success with was taking guys, Bobby Ross, developing them over time and turning them into something and maximizing their talent. And that's why Brent made the changes he made on the defensive side of the ball. He wanted to bring in guys that could teach and coach up guys, and he has that now. So that's what's going on there. Yes, Georgia Tech has the number one basketball class for 2025 right now. We've got a walk-on punter question, Russell. Russell may not know who Josh Taylor is. I know Josh Taylor is. Where's number 40? I have no idea what they're going to do at punter when Shanahan's done. They haven't offered one, right? For 25 yet, Russell?
No.
So I don't know if you go to the portal. I don't know how they view Josh. Josh does an okay job. He doesn't have the leg that a Shanahan has, like you can tell. There's a huge difference between just how the ball sounds off their foot. Now it all sounds way different than Presley Harvin did when he was there. So that's sort of my great measuring stick. If I hear that thud of Presley Harvin, which was like probably the best I've heard from a punter, then that's a different thing. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how Shanahan does this year too with better coaching for a second year in a row. Russell, how good of a tight end is Luke Harpering going to be early and long term?
These are some interesting questions. I mean, Luke Harpering, he looks a part of an elite, not elite, a top level athlete. He was playing both sides of the ball at Marist. Really, 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 twitchy guy for his size. Basketball player, obviously, with the last name Harpering. But just he's got the opportunity to, with his his speed and ability to kind of separate. I think that he will have the chance to make an impact. I mean, nothing against the other guys in that tight end room, but I think the combination of both him and Prince. Prince is more of a vertical threat, but Harpering's more of an all around type talent who can make those type of plays and catch those balls that haven't really been there the last few years.
Is it realistic to require an edge rusher from the portal better than Kyle Kennard, who we lost to South Carolina, presumably because of NIL? If so, was it the case in when we had an opportunity to match but thought we could upgrade? All right, I will say I love Kyle Kennard. Like personally, great dude. Really enjoy getting to know him. Kyle Kennard had 4 sacks in one game and then 2 the rest of the season and played another, I'd have to pull it up, but I'm going to guess 600 and something sacks, 600 something snaps with 2 sacks. So yes, it is possible to find that production. I would presume you'd want a guy to spread those 6 sacks over the course of 12, 13 games and not one. And I forget, he had one other sack. I think it was against an FBS team because I remember one of them, I think, was against South Carolina State too. So, like, yes, you can find that production. It's not a shot against Kyle. He wasn't putting up Jeremiah Tachu numbers or Derek Morgan or any, great edge guy numbers. He was okay. He was solid. And they benched him at times for Kevin Harris last year, which also sort of shows where he was how they viewed him. So, yeah, and it wasn't a money thing. They could have opted to pay him more money. The ones that, like, the only guy who's left in all of this purely financial things where it was like unmatchable is Jahmyr Gibbs in the time that I've covered Georgia Tech, where that was straight up a business transaction essentially, where they were not going to be able to do what Bama could do for him or another school. So yeah. What is your best guess, given what we know now about how the linebacker room will shake out? Who are your presumed starters and guys in the rotation? Where does this unit fit in relation to the rest of the defense? Tyler Santucci thinks it's pretty good. I thought they looked pretty good all spring and then in the spring game. I think Kyle Kennard's Kyle Eford's your main piece at that Mike linebacker position, and it's built around him. And Trent Tatum looked a lot better in the spring game. He had kind of developed more. You have him. You have Jackson Hamilton and Tajay Butler, and then you have EJ Lightsey, and they're cross-trained, so you can play both of the linebacker positions. So I think they're in good shape. My guess is that the top 3 guys, going into the first game will be Eford, Tren, and Lightsey. And then from there, Jackson Hamilton and Tajay Butler. We'll see. Someone asked if doing the mailbag. Yes, I got backed up with tax yesterday to do my taxes and pay the government. And I'm insane amount of money. So I will get around to that maybe tonight, hopefully.
Did you say you had EJ as the third linebacker?
Yeah.
Hmm. I just was curious.
Yeah, no, I think I mean, it's hard to tell because he missed 2 weeks of camp. So can he jump in and edge out Trent or Eford or something? Sure. I think they mostly had him working on one side too once he got in there because he was behind the eight ball a little bit because of his coming off an injury.
Right.
But he looked good in the. And here's the other thing people don't realize too: there were a lot of guys that they held back in the spring game and didn't give a lot of snap. I could count out guys who I thought were going to play that played like 2 snaps, or guys that they just healthy scratched because they didn't want to put them on tape or shine a light on them or whatever. Someone wants me to do a 2 deep depth chart entering summer. I can do that post spring. How well has the defensive staff been able to make inroads in recruiting since they don't have long-term history with these kids? I see Christian Garrett giving GT one of his 4 official visits this summer. How do you rate our chances? I mean, I can answer. I've been out on the road for the last 2 weeks, Russell, doing rivals camps.
Yes.
And so I'm talking to kids that the entire staff are recruiting. So all the South Carolina kids love Corey Peebles. The Mid-Atlantic kids that Kyle Pope was recruiting love him. Defensive linemen seem to really like Jess Simpson. Haven't run into quite as much with Santucci because obviously he's a DC, so he's not really an area recruiter. He's more of the closer like Brent.
Yeah. Well,
but
and linebackers, if the guys who are supposed to show up at the Rivals camp on Sunday in Atlanta, that should be a time where we really start to hear Santucci's name a lot more, because those are the guys that he's been, recruiting for, quite some time, whether it be from his time at Duke or even going, back to when he was at A&M before Duke. It's just a matter of those relationships and connections. They said that they don't have long-term history with the kids. I would argue that is false.
Yeah, I don't think that's accurate at all. They've all been recruiting the Southeast this whole time.
Yeah, I would call that a myth. I think that each of them, like I said, they have their pockets where they've been recruiting. Kyle Pope has done a really good job with recruiting his areas. And he's going to, try to flex his muscle in the state of Alabama and even into Tennessee, where he was recruiting for Memphis. But, Christian Garrett, that question, I did see he's locked in on coming to the Rivals camp this weekend. So I'm excited to see him hopefully compete. Christian Garrett is teammates and really close friends with Aaron Philo, and was also really good friends with Bailey Stockton. So that's one of the big connections there. I would say the big thing that Georgia Tech does is they emphasize the relationships from the top down. You know what I mean? Like you were just saying, the entire coaching staffs are recruiting these kids. It's not just a primary and a secondary.
No, and it's even like the analysts and stuff. I interviewed a kid, there's a cornerback they're recruiting that's going to OV, and he was talking about Tim Salem because he knew Tim Salem from Pitt when he was on the Pitt staff, and he recruited him at Pitt. And so they already had that relationship. And then Ricky came in and offered him Brumfeld, and that kind of gave Georgia Tech, quite frankly, a jumpstart into that kid's recruitment. That was a guy that's, a support staff guy that was sort of helping push that a little bit further along and get them into an OV position on a kid. So, yeah. Is the transfer portal strictly about money with the top 50 portal entries? I have no idea. I would assume so. Money's a pretty big factor, but player development, system fits, those things still factor in, and you're not going to have a guy that's a 3-4 outside linebacker go play in a defense that doesn't really use, stand-up edges or whatever. Like, there is a little bit of that. Someone said there was a guy on the east sideline Saturday wearing an Aaron Donald Rams jersey. After the game, he hung out in the tunnel for a few minutes, talked to several people, and then went into the tunnel into the locker room. Any idea if it was him? I would be shocked if Aaron Donald's walking around wearing an Aaron Donald Rams jersey. Would you agree with that assessment, Russell?
Yes. Yeah.
Could it be a relative of his? Sure, absolutely. Could it be like an uncle or a cousin or something? Yeah.
Yeah, it's much more likely to be something like that with, a connection to somebody on the GT staff than it is Aaron Donald to announce his presence by wearing his jersey to a Georgia Tech spring game.
Yeah, these athletes want to low key when you see them. They're like not doing that. Someone asked about the Samato, Kirill, and Carter Knox. Carter Knox is Chicken Man, dude. If you follow him on Instagram, you know what Chicken Man is? It's someone that likes the Tyson family, aka Arkansas. The other kid, the big guy, I mean, I think that would be a really poor use of your finances to gamble on that kid if you're Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I wouldn't call him one-dimensional. I mean, he's pretty close to one-dimensional as a player. He can
catches
protect
the ball
the rim,
yeah,
and catch the ball and dunk and can rebound. But he's not like an experienced rebounder in difficult situations. He's more of I've been bigger than everybody for so long that I kind of just get in front of them and get the ball.
The guy at Florida State they had that left, I think he went to Syracuse. It's very much like that. I can't think of his name right now, but just sort of get ball, catch ball, dunk ball, and block shot. And that's his game. And no, you need something a little more dynamic to play and what Damon's trying to do. Someone asked about Aeneas Peebles, Russell.
I'm not sure what's going to happen there yet. I don't know. I haven't really checked into Virginia Tech much, but I'll dig into it, and if there's anything worth reporting, I'll post it in the portal thread.
Someone asked about my forecast of Pippen to Michigan, and do they fill that role elsewhere? I mean, they got McCollum, so that sort of fills that role. Someone asked if they're getting too many guards relative to other positions. Watch an NBA game sometimes. They play with 4 guards at times. So, no. They played with...
Yeah, it's insane.
They played with 4 guards last year at times, with just Bai as the only big man in the game. That was what I projected the starting lineup to be, actually, to start the season. And they didn't. That was usually what happened at the first time out. They would sub out like EB for, Debo Coleman or Kyle or something. And that was like, and you'd have like 4 guards and a big man. So, no, I don't think so. We talked about that already. What happened with Justin Pippen? I went into that on the board. Go read it. Jacketsonline today. That was in my update yesterday. On the Q's take. Thanks to our friends from Intellica, they're going to do they're doing an Earth Day event actually that I'm going to show up for, and I'll tell you guys more about it very soon. Where they're going to recycle a bunch of electronic stuff, and I actually have a bunch of stuff I want to recycle with them. So always do your best to help our sponsors. Click on their stuff, check them out. Intellica, great people, run by a Georgia Tech guy who's an active member of our message board. With Gavin leaving to do kickoffs, they have a second kicker to handle kickoffs. I think they will figure that out. Aiden Burke can certainly do it in a pinch. So could Shanahan, actually. Holes on football. Russell, what are the holes on the football team?
Oh, holes on football team.
I mean, say the rush end spot, they just don't have a lot of depth.
Yes, yeah. I think that they need an impact weapon there. Like they need
someone
an impact
player. Get you 7 sacks, right? Like let's really look for 7, 8 sacks.
Yes.
And consistent pressure.
I also wouldn't. I think they could upgrade the secondary at some level, whether it be the nickel, safety, corner, any of the 3. Just having more of a an alpha back there.
Yeah, I think you see a little hint of it from the Burrell guy, and Amari Harvey has a little bit of that edge to him. LaMiles can. He just was not himself last year, so you wonder if he bounces back to that. And CP Lee, it was good to see him actually like looking better in space and playing better in space. So, oh, best worst OV story you've heard or witnesses covering Georgia Tech. Generally, don't witness things, though. There was one thing that we witnessed that was pretty bad. Or Russell did, I think. Was it Russell or was it you or me that kid that went to Miami?
Oh
That
yeah,
that was a real. Well, did he go to Miami? I don't even remember now.
he committed to
Kid from
Miami.
Miami that was like really like rude to his mother and the coaching staff in front of
Oh
us.
man, that was brutal.
Um,
That was really bad. And then everybody likes to talk about the Tevin Carter situation. That was fun.
yeah, those are, as far as
Or
best,
the the corner from Florida who showed up. I think he was like 146 pounds or something for his OV.
well, I remember Paul Johnson always told me this story about there's a kid on his team his first year. I guess they signed him for the '09 class, maybe, or the '08 class. Can't remember if it was a late ad for '08 or. And he got off the plane. It was like 4 inches shorter than he was supposed to be, and they had sent the kid paperwork and everything. And he looked at the other guys on the staff and was like, "We are stuck with this kid now, and he is
Oof.
not tall enough to play the position we're recruiting him for." He was a nice kid, just was he really did suck. It was not good. I'll keep his name out of it for that purposes. As far as good stories, we don't get a ton of those. I mean, there's some funny ones where like a kid commits on his OV and like gets so excited that he calls Russell. And who's the kid that did that? That was funny. He like flipped out and like called you in the middle of his OV to let you know that he committed and wanted to like you to write a story. I
Oh
can't remember
god.
who it was. It would have been probably early Jeff era. Um,
I don't remember which one it was. That actually happens more often than you'd think.
yeah,
I
usually we
remember
walk
when
the kid
hearing
back to
about
do it
Haynes King
after.
committing
Yeah,
at dinner
yeah,
and everybody like celebrating and getting so pumped up about it. I'd say that would be my best recent one. Would be hearing that moment and then knowing about it ahead of time from hearing about it through sources and being able to ask kids during the post OV interviews about that moment and why they were so, fired up and all that kind of stuff. That was a lot more insightful than you normally get the chance to be in those, 2 minute to 2 minute 30 interviews while the parents are staring at you waiting for you to stop talking so they can get to the airport or get back on the road home.
yeah. 3 years ago, what would you have put the odds at to watch Jose Alvarado D up LeBron and throw lobs to Zion in an NBA playoff game? I will go on record. I was one of the people that said that Jose just needed a chance to make the league, that I'd never seen someone want it more than that kid wanted it. Like he wanted to play in the NBA. He wanted to be a great player and didn't really have the right offense or the pieces around him to do it in college all the time. But you could see it each year. He got better and better. And then just his dedication to playing defense. So I'm not shocked. I'm a little bit shocked that he went so viral like he did early on. I mean, I remember when he didn't get drafted and like talking to him and how dejected he was and all that. And it was like I told him, to be honest, it was better than getting drafted in the second round because now he could find his own niche and find the right opportunity. So I'm not shocked. It's not the most surprising thing that's happened. I'm trying to think of like the pro that like most surprised me. As Antonio Simmons playing in like the Canadian Football League for years. He was a defensive end, wrestled during the Paul Johnson era that like didn't really even start that much. He's played like 12 years or something in the CFL now or something crazy.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, he's like just continued to play. I think I remember seeing he was like coming out of retirement to come back and play or something. I saw on Facebook maybe. Um, so yeah, that's one. So have you watched any of the spring game, Russell? I know you weren't there, but have you been
Yes,
able
yeah,
to?
I watched the whole game actually today.
Okay, so we'll take the last little bit here and appreciate everyone asking questions, but we'll talk about the spring game here going out. Uh, what did you think? Kind of what were your impressions?
I mean, I think the defense looked a lot more put together. That obviously it's a spring game, so everybody knows the plays ahead of time. But there was no real miscommunication. You saw a lot of DBs turning around and making plays on the ball. You saw a lot of the defensive transfers, making an impact. Whether it be Warren Burrell, or some of the others. And you saw a guy like Eddie Kelly, who is in his second year, right? Second year since transferring.
Yeah, so second year tech, yeah, third year
Yeah,
playing.
you saw him really his body and his frame really look much improved. And then you've created depth at the linebacker position while being able to also move a guy like Jacob Cruz to be be on the line, which is big for him. And he showed flashes of what he may be able to be there while he was there. I'd say the biggest takeaway that I had was Tay Seymour. I know a lot of people were talking a lot about the other new positions and the different scheme defensively, but I thought Tay Seymour he flashed at least 5, 6, maybe even 7 times when I was watching it today. Just getting to the ball, being around the ball, knowing his assignment, or at least what looked like his assignment. Said could obviously go more in depth on that, but it looked like he knew what he was doing. He didn't look like the the high school senior he was, where he was strictly just going off of his raw athleticism and making plays, whether it be on offense or defense. Um, the other real big one was Jamal Haynes. At times last year he looked a little bit. I wouldn't really say he was a liability or anything like that, but in pass pro there were times where he would get beat, and King would either turn the ball over or get sacked, things like that. I thought he looked much better in a very limited sample size. So obviously take it with a grain of salt. You've seen all of spring practice. I just watched, one spring game, which all the fans did too. So
Yeah, they with Jamal, they've tried to and Brent said as much publicly that they know what he can do, and it's like not about beating him up in the spring.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I thought what was interesting to me is that the game was competitive because it was ones versus twos across both sides. So they were not playing good on good; they were playing ones and twos. Um, so it was the one offense against two defense and so forth. And that it was even competitive, I think, is a great sign of and different from how they would scrimmage in practice. They would go ones versus ones and all that. I think they did that to make it entertaining, and it certainly made it entertaining. You didn't have like a stalemate, and you didn't have maybe Haynes King get frustrated because maybe it would have been harder to move the ball or whatever. So you got him to get in, get out, do his thing. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I was impressed with Zach Pyron and like how much stronger his arm looked. He made a couple really nice throws he wouldn't have made 2 years ago. Philo, you can see why they like him. When it slows down
yes.
for him, it'll get interesting. Graham Knowles,
Philo's going to be very good. So is
yeah,
Graham
I think
Knowles. I
Graham
don't know
Knowles
what's going
has
to
a lot of
happen there.
moxie, man. Um, like I was shocked he doesn't move. He's not a great runner, but he moved around the pocket and made some things happen once he settled down. So I was
Yeah,
impressed with all of them. And you know what Eric Singleton is. You know what Leo. I know what Leo can do at least. It's good to
yeah,
see him catch a touchdown. It was cool for Chris Elko to get his little moment. Um,
yeah, man. I was watching and I remembered him from Roswell, and I was like, I had no idea he ended up at Tech until I saw you tweeting his name over the weekend, and I was at the ballpark and I was looking and I was like, who is this Elko kid? And I remembered watching him when he was at Roswell, and I'm like, huh, how did this happen?
And there were guys that didn't play, like, Anthony Carey didn't get it to work with the first team offense, which he would do normally in scrimmages. That I think was intentional. Harrison Moore didn't play much that I saw. He's been a
Yeah.
guy they're really excited about on the offensive line. It was cool. Jacob Cruz, you saw him do a little bit of something at the rush end spot. Almost came up with a fumble. Tajay, you could see a little bit of Tajay Butler, like what they like about him. I thought
Oh
Trent
yeah,
played
yeah.
really
He
well.
flashed a lot.
Yeah, I thought Trent Tatum played well. Um, I thought the corners did a pretty decent job.
Yeah, I really liked Cedric Franklin. I thought he showed more to me in that spring game today when I watched it. Obviously on Saturday when it happened, but he showed more to me then in that sample size going against that level of competition than he did his senior season at Cal. And that's nothing against his performance at Cal, but he wasn't targeted as much. And this spring, at least in the spring game, it was, every time I looked up, they were throwing it said. And he lost some and he won some.
Jameson Riggs, left tackle, I thought did well. You didn't notice him not doing well, which just means he's doing well. Or at least holding his own, which is good to see. Josh Robinson's the other guy that it's a guy, like I used to joke that he looked like he was running in quicksand. Because I think he wasn't confident in what he was doing, maybe in the defense. And he looks like a totally different player now, and that's really cool to see. And obviously, the core trio of the 3D tackles are really good. Horace and Machias and Zeke, and I think they got something special there. And the guy who's like the most cut up guy on the team, Sylvain, and you didn't get to see him yet. So it'll be interesting when he gets cleared. I think he said May or June he gets cleared. So there's a lot to be excited about, and you didn't really get to see Jackson Hawes. You didn't get to see Avery Boyd. Those guys have both had like really good camps. And then, like those young receivers, Zion Taylor flashed a little bit. Brent kind of called him out for a couple push offs, but he got away with them in the spring game. So if you get away with it, you're okay. They just look bigger to me. That's the other thing that I noticed. And it's not sloppy big. Like, Jeff, they got a little sloppy looking, especially on the lines. And they look cut up and big and just physically bigger. So that was sort of my thought. It was also cool to see Aidenberg hit that field goal. And
yeah, that would have been good from about 5 or 6 yards more too.
And as Brent Key jokingly predicted after his media session, I had a coach from another school ask me today about if I thought that kid was going in the portal or not, which he's very happy, and I don't think he is going anywhere. But it just goes to show you the mindset that's going on at places right now.
Kelly, what'd you think of Jamie Felix?
That was I don't know if I audibly groaned during when Patrick asked that question, but it was pretty bad. It was like one of those things everyone's been asking about Jamie, and I don't know what his deal is and like what his situation is, but it's just sort of a thing where I'm like not interested in like getting it on the record. I just feel like nothing positive's coming out of that. He's on the team still as of now. We'll see what happens. He played after Jamal Haynes, after Trey Cooley, after Anthony Carey, after Evan Dickens, after Daylon Gordon, after Chad Alexander. He came into the game. So that sort of gives you an idea of where he's at right now. Maybe he works his way out of it, but I wouldn't be shocked to see his name float out in the portal here soon either. But yeah, that's where we're at. I appreciate everyone for joining us. It's been a little funky.
Is Bailey Stockton on? Is he on scholarship?
Not yet.
Gotcha. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It was just
no, you're okay. I think he's a guy that
my
can
notes
eventually.
as well.
Yeah, I think if he's in the two deep. He's on scholarship, and I think he could be in the two deep at slot. I think he could be Malik's backup before it's all said and done. And they were playing Leary at the Z receiver position in the spring game quite a bit. So we'll see what happens there. That's one I'm kind of keeping an eye on too. Like that, he's a guy that they thought would play last year. I actually talked about him I was on Chuck Oliver's radio show this morning and talked about Bailey Stockton. And I think I screwed up again where he went to school. But Bailey, yeah, he broke his wrist or something in fall camp last year. Otherwise, he would have played last year. They had penciled him in for to be on the team and traveling and stuff, and then he got hurt. So, all right, guys. Hopefully next time Russell will have his camera on and not be high on NyQuil and battling whatever weird crud he has going on. Having been dealing with that myself, wish Russell a speedy recovery, and thanks for everyone for joining us tonight. And we'll try to get this to be less of a bootleg operation as it was this week. Thanks to our friends also at My Perfect Franchise for supporting Jacketsonline. If you're interested in getting into the franchising business and diversifying your income, that's a group you should check out. You can ask for West, and his info will be on the site. But thanks, everybody. Appreciate you. And we'll try to be back next week. We'll be back next week. We'll have a recap from the Rivals camp in Atlanta. I'm sure it'll be real interesting.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of info from there.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. Good night.